Jason, good to meet you in person. We spoke on the show a few years ago.
We did?
A year ago, something like that. So we're here at the Gadget show, and you've got a whole range of vintage stuff. So what are you showing off here today?
We've got everything. We've got a stand that goes from the 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s. So we're in the 90s in a minute, so let's go back in time.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, so we've got things like the PlayStation, which sort of nobody really remembers as being that old. You know,
yeah, it's not classed as vintage, but yeah, I suppose it is,
it's getting on a bit now.
Yeah.
And then when you look at the graphics and stuff, then you start to realise...
Yeah, you can, you forget what they were like, don't you? Yeah.
I thought that was fantastic at the time.
Yeah.
But now it's looking a bit dated, poor old thing. But
with the TV and the video as well.
Yep, absolutely. Now you've got to have the vintage TVs and everything else to show off on. You've got a little collection of sort of mobile devices, phones, MP3 players.
And I've got one of them, an Apple Newton at home on my shelf. Yeah, still works.
They're really good machines. They're quite ahead of their time, really.
Yeah, I used to use it at work, and people used to think, "What on earth are you doing?"
But no, I mean the handwriting recognition, a little bit dicey, but for its time, really impressive.
Yeah.
So and just sort of general hi-fi and the old chunky laptops from the 90s.
Yeah.
And then we go round to the 80s.
You can see a change straight away it sort of things shrunk down and smaller and
absolutely. When, for the 90s, obviously it was all getting smaller, but these devices, we've got sort of ghetto blaster in the far corner there, which is huge.
Yeah.
The Apple Mac, which is sort of everybody's favourite, I think. Seeing that up and running again, which is
tiny little
cool.
screen.
They were. Yeah. But they were really good quality though.
Yeah.
So it was quite clear and easy to use. Commodore 64, those are gamers' favourites. So we've got Navy SEALs in there at the minute for them.
Yeah. And a friend had one of those, but I never had one of those. But I definitely have one of these, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, the old electronic games was everybody's sort of price bracket. So, I mean,
they forget really before the sort of like iPods gaming. These were your portable gaming devices, weren't they?
Yeah. I mean, I got the Astro Wars, and I must have played it for literally months on end.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
I had a similar one, sort of the thin yellow one. I think I worked out if you went left and right as fast as you could get.
Right.
That was it. That was how you did it.
Galaxy Invader 1000.
That was it.
So you got Munchman, the old copy of Pac-Man, the Casio VL Tone little keyboard that annoyed everybody at school.
Yeah.
Okay,
so and there's the computer there at the bottom. There is the one that sort of set me off on the first one I ever used at school.
Right.
ZX80. And that got me interested because it was plugged into other things like robot. I think we had a robot arm or some servos because our electronics teacher was kind of a whiz of that, and he really got into that.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing about the computers of that era is that all the information was there about how to connect it up to things. You had the information about what the port did at the back, and it became accessible. And then everything. I don't think there's very many computers of the 80s that didn't connect to something external at some point. So a bit of photography down there. So everyone not realising that back in the 80s, obviously no digital photography at all. Mobile phones, the old big original 8000S, the Motorola phone, and the
Walkman.
Yeah, the Walkman.
Yeah.
Technically that's 79, but it sort of really
it's in the 80s.
It was biggest in the 80s.
Yeah.
So classic sort of hi-fi.
I'm sure my dad had one of them.
Everybody's had one of them.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's abstract. It's one of those sort of things where the guy brought sort of relatively expensive electronics down in price so that everyone could afford them. So
I think if you open them up, they're not that good. There's just one little board inside, but that was it.
Yeah, not got some mods on it as well. Quite interesting. But I mean, at the end of the day, it was good stuff.
Yeah,
it really was. So again, NES now, going a bit further back, and classic TV to show it on as well.
I think when you look at the graphics, it doesn't look that much different from the sort of PlayStation side.
Not really, no. It's not. I mean,
some of the colours and
same sort of colour, and I mean, it's 8-bit sort of gaming. In the 80s, and whereas the other ones were obviously 16-bit. But no, I mean, it was the gameplay though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You had some absolutely classic games on that one.
Now I never actually owned one of these because I was always a computer guy and had the little. But
had to have a computer rather than a console.
The console was a bit too, not have that
serious enough. So then on this way we start to go around to the 70s then. So
I remember one of those. I definitely have one of those.
So these are all really late 70s. So getting close to the 80s. But Simon, Speak and Spell. To all the kids to speak with an American accent.
And then this, I definitely used at school, and a friend had one for some reason. I think it was his dad from work. He must have.
Yeah, I mean, these were expensive. These were the Commodore Pets, and they were business machines primarily. I remember having a friend that his dad brought one home, and we were hardly allowed to even touch it, let alone use it for anything useful. But yeah, I mean, they're again a really popular machine at the time.
I mean, even into the late 80s, I remember seeing them at college with the disk drives and everything, but they were still essentially the same thing until 88, 89.
Yeah, no, they had a long lifetime. The very first one, which had the little tiny chiclet keyboard, was 77. But they went through to the 80s for being quite a long way, and then they changed the design slightly. And the very last one became very sleek and rounded and really sort of stylish. Video camera from the 70s, huge,
slightly bigger than the one we're filming on now,
absolutely,
and slightly lower quality.
But you can't really imagine. I mean, because this was only half the job.
Yeah.
So that's your video camera, but you also needed the video on your side to.
So onto a VHS tape or something.
Yeah, straight onto a VHS or beta tape. Enormous things.
I do remember one of these as well.
Yeah, everybody loves Pong. I mean, the grandstand over here, Binatone produced loads and loads of different consoles. No one up there, and they were all basically the same, just Pong game, but then variations on that. So you had football, which was really just Pong, but with goals at the end instead, and all these different variations. But again,
and these I remember these the little the thing you turn the paddles,
absolutely, and it was just good fun. But the trouble is, everybody remembers it being much slower than it was. It's hard to play with this one of you.
And I think I remember one of these. I remember these as well. I'm sure my dad had one something like this.
They were all the rage at the time. Yeah. TV and Ghetto Blast were all in one. Yeah. Quite strange, really. But they were quite the thing at the time. So then we've got now the sort of 70s sort of house stuff, old TV, and then obviously the Atari 2600 came out in 77.
So this is really what kind of kicked off the games console.
That was the real big push on.
So they went from sort of the little cheap ones with a few games to actually having proper cartridges in.
Yeah, well, I mean, you had the Pong sort of games, but they were still limited. They were all basically the same game in one box.
Yeah.
This, with the cartridge system, allows you to then play any number, and there were thousands and thousands of games produced for it. It's quite well known about how many were produced, and then just the speed at which they were being produced, the quality was getting less and less. Sort of ending up with ET game, which was an absolute flop. And they said that was the end of gaming at that time. That was the end of consoles, but obviously it lived on.
How we used to.
And you got the big video there with the VHS with the.
That was Betamax.
Was that a Betamax? Yeah. I think my dad went Betamax.
We went Betamax. Betamax was better. That's why. It's just a shame that VHS sort of took over, but no. So we got the Betamax there, and sort of classic sort of.
I do remember the big track as well.
Yeah, big tracks, but obviously back again. Fantastic. Sort of TVs, and, just silly things like that. That was technology at the time. It was something modern in the home that have your tea in the morning made for you. Fantastic.
And the Trill phone, was it?
Yep, two phones. Yeah. That one's got the rotary dial, and they later on had the push buttons on them.
Yeah.
And then we're
going pretty low tech now.
Yeah, we're getting further and further back now. So we're now in the 60s.
Yeah.
Tiny little black and white TVs, typewriters, hi-fi over there of sorts.
Yeah, the typewriter. I mean, I think when we came last year, my kids saw that. What is it?
Got to get some paper in that. Actually, I forgot. It gets so much love as well. People are typing on, like Twitter messages and things like that. It's quite funny. But I mean, at that time, that was pretty much all we had to do. Anything like that, So no computer at all.
Where I work, there's a few people who still wish they've got them.
Yeah, absolutely. It would make things a bit simpler. Yeah. But then this surprises quite a lot of people, because obviously you go back to the 60s, you just think no computing.
Yeah.
But there was, albeit very, very basic. This is the Mini-Vac 601. And it, you can call it a computer. It is 6 bits, 6 inputs, 6 outputs, and then this sort of rotary step controller there, so you can actually program in mathematical patterns into it, and it will do calculations.
Right.
So it is a very, very, very basic form of computing. And it was used quite a lot to teach the fundamentals of computing and what it can do, rather than necessarily playing any games on. And then we've got back to the sort of the 90s now on this podium. So
round,
with the Macs and everything else. So
yeah, now you can see really the genesis of the modern Mac. And
yeah, absolutely. You know, you've only got to look from over there to over here and see an incredible transition.
And you've even got, I think you've got a Raspberry Pi over there, which is kind of following that tradition of low cost.
Absolutely. I mean, this could be a sea change for everything. I'm quite excited about this. You know, this is £25 computer, albeit just an individual board. But, you know, that's an incredibly powerful little machine there.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is add a USB keyboard, an HDMI screen. You've got yourself, you know, a PC. Runs Linux, obviously, and yeah, we're quite excited about what people might be able to do with it. You know,
because I think did hear on one of the talks that there was going to be a BBC Micro or BBC Basic kind of in there.
Yeah, well, it's there could well be. I mean, it's not necessarily designed to do that,
but you could emulate.
Because exactly, because it's a Linux operating system. You know, there's loads of it. We've had BBM running on it anyway. It's very, very slow at the minute. Some bugs to sort out, but there's no reason.
But of course, look at all the modern languages on there, the Python and all that kind of stuff. Which is accessible straight into.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it just brings it down to a cost where you can play with this thing, and if it all goes horribly wrong, you've wired up motors to it, and it goes wrong, it's not going to break the bank. I mean, I did the same thing with the BBC Micro back in the early 80s, and blew it up. You know, and my mum spent a lot of time earning that money to pay the same sort of money again to have it repaired. Now, that was an expensive mistake, because then 400 quid at that time was what, 1,500 now. So with this, you can afford to make those mistakes. And if that just brings another generation of programmers and electronics engineers along, fantastic.
Now, all this is from the Centre for Computing History. You're down in Cambridge. So you're moving to a new location, I believe.
Yeah, well, we're just outside of Cambridge at the minute. We're in Haverhill. We've got a small place there, but we've now we're right at the last stages now of agreeing a building in Cambridge. It's 10,500 square feet, and I think with any luck, with the planning permission going through, we'll be in there.
This stuff needs to be shown off. And
well, we want to do a similar sort of thing where the stuff's out, you can play with it. We don't want too many glass cabinets of stuff you can't touch. It's got to be accessible. You've got to be able to play with these things. Kids have got to be able to realise how clunky they were, but then also what fun they were. Because they were. So hopefully within a couple of months or so, we'll be in Cambridge.
So where's a place to go to get sort of more information? Because the website's pretty good. It's got all the equipment list on there. I've used it quite a few times.
Everything that we've got in the museum, well, at least most of the stuff, we're still going through a lot of things, is on the website. There's about 18,000 items documented on there so far. It's www.computinghistory.org.uk, and go and have a look and see if there's anything that you used to have from your past.
Excellent. Thanks very well. Thanks for your time. I really enjoyed the tour. Thank you.
Appreciate it.